here this afternoon. It's great to see a huge crowd here again, likewise as we had for the 20th and the 30th anniversary. Today we're marking all those Irish Republican martyrs who died on hunger strike from 1917 to 1981. And of course we're also marking the 35th anniversary of the Long Kesh hunger strike. And also, of course, the centenary of the Easter 1916 rising. So the first thing I'm going to do, we're very honoured as well to have Malachy McCreesh with us here today, brother of H Block, Martha Raymond. I ask Malachy to step forward to take the reed off Joe McDermott and lay it at the National Monument.
Run out!
Thank you, Malachy. Now I'm going to call on Dahi Debarra of the Cork Mazzini Republic of Tupac, who is going to read the Hunger Strike Roll of Honour. Irish Republican Hunger Strike Roll of Honour. Volunteer Thomas Ash, Kerry, 5 days on hunger strike, died as a result of force feeding by British authorities. Volunteer Michael Fitzgerald, Cork, died after 67 days on hunger strike in Cork jail. Volunteer Joseph Murphy, Cork, died after 76 days on hunger strike in Cork jail. Volunteer Terence McSweeney, Cork, died after 74 days on hunger strike in Brixton jail. Volunteer Joseph Whitty, Wexford, died on hunger strike in Curra internment camp. Volunteer Dennis Barry, Cork, died after 34 days on hunger strike in Newbridge internment camp. Volunteer Andrew Sullivan, Cork, died after 40 days on hunger strike. Volunteer Tony Darcy, Galway, died after 52 days on hunger strike in St. Bryson's Military Hospital, Dublin. Volunteer Sean McNeila, Mayo, died after 55 days on hunger strike in Arbor Hill Cemetery, Detention Barracks. Volunteer Sean McCarthy, Tyrone, died after 23 days on hunger strike in Portage Jail. Volunteer Michael Gotten, Mayo, died after 64 days on hunger strike in Parkhurst Jail, England. Volunteer Frank Stagg, Mayo, died after 62 days on hunger strike in Wakefield Jail, England. The following 10 Republican prisoners of war all gave their lives on hunger strike in the H blocks of Long Kesh in 1981. Volunteer Bobby Sands, Belfast, died after 66 days on hunger strike. Volunteer Francis Hughes, Derry, died after 59 days on hunger strike. Volunteer Raymond McCreesh, South Armagh, died after 61 days on hunger strike. Volunteer Patsy O'Hara, Derry, died after 61 days on hunger strike. Volunteer Joe MacDonald, Belfast, died after 61 days on hunger strike. Volunteer Martin Hurston, Tyrone, died after 46 days on hunger strike. Volunteer Kevin Lynch, Derry, died after 71 days on hunger strike. Volunteer Kieran Doherty, Belfast, died after 73 days on hunger strike. Volunteer Thomas McElwee, Derry, died after 62 days on hunger strike. Volunteer Michael Devine, Derry, died after 60 days on hunger strike. It is not those who can inflict the most, but those who can endure the most that shall conquer. Forshiad Foster, Sincere Sinead. Thanks, Dahi. I'm just going to introduce our first speaker, which is Councillor Mairead Farrell from Galway. We're very honoured to have Mairead here today. At our lecture last night in St. Peter's and on Main Street, Mairead spoke eloquently about her aunt, Old Look Mairead Farrell, killed in active service in Gibraltar in March in 1988. And of course, Mairead was on a hunger strike as well. Mary Doyle and Mairead Nugent in Armagh prison in 1980. And Mairead Farrell stood as a general election H Block candidate in Cork North Central in the H Block election 1981, securing almost 3,000 votes. Do you mind give a round of applause, please, for Councillor Mairead Farrell?
Gústeach bháin marrá gur onar mórda mé a bheith seo lí chun leabhart líb agus chun chomóra dhéana na stalchríochtas ar fad a bhfuair bás san na hÉireann. I just want to say I am really honoured to be here to commemorate all the hunger strikers who gave their lives in the struggle for Irish freedom. And there's absolutely no more appropriate place than here in Cork, which has a long, proud tradition of republicanism and which is the home county of 5 of our hunger strikers who gave the ultimate price in the struggle for Irish freedom. Now, while Terence McSweeney's name is synonymous with Cork and has been an inspiration for generations of Irish Republicans, little is known outside of Cork, and not that much is known outside of Cork, of the other hunger strikers who gave their lives. To think that Michael Fitzgerald spent 68 days, Joseph Murray 76, Dennis Barry 34, and Andrew O'Sullivan 40 days on the strike is indicative to me of the phenomenal strength of convictions among Cork Republicans. The fact that the British state interned an elected mayor of Cork and watched him die on hunger strike show their complete contempt for the democratic will of the Irish people. But that contempt was to be replicated 61 years on when they murdered MP Bobby Sands. That struggle for justice for Republicans wasn't just fought against the British state, and that is something that Cork Republicans know only too well. 2 of Cork's hunger strikers, Commandant Dennis Barry and Andrew O'Sullivan, died in November 1923 under the watch of the so-called Free State. Unfortunately, not much changed in the intervening years, and we saw that with the death of Kieran Doherty. Kieran Doherty was elected as a TD to Dáil Éireann for Cavan Monaghan in 1981. But those who were in Dáil Éireann with him did very, very little to stop him being murdered as well. But Cork's involvement in the hunger strike didn't just end in the 1920s, it continued right through. Your support for the hunger strikers continued right through to 1981, and that's something that me and my family know only too well. Ye campaigned extremely hard for my aunt who ran for election in this area. And I just want to say, and I've said this already last night at the election last night, but I think it's really important for me to say again, my granny and granddad had absolutely great memories of coming down here, of the welcome and support that she gave to my family. Now, one thing though that my granny used to always say was that she wasn't quite expecting such a welcome from the special branch. Apparently she was followed everywhere she went and she couldn't get over it. But unfortunately, both my grandparents passed away. But I know that if they were still alive today, that they would have asked me to thank you all on their behalf. So on behalf of my family, I just really want to say, Gur Mila Mahagi, Asofna Tapio. The fact that 2,751 people from Cork North Central gave their first preference vote to a woman from West Belfast with no strong Cork connections and who was in prison in Armagh jail at the time, was and remains to be a great source of pride for my family. To me, this shows that Republicans everywhere felt that same solidarity with the hunger strikers of 1981 and the political prisoners as Republicans had in 1916 when the leaders of the Rising were executed. Now, my aunt was 24 years old when she ran an election in Cork North Central, and it just struck me recently that I was actually the exact same age. I was 24 years old when I ran for election. But what really struck me was the different circumstances and daily realities which we had at the times of our campaign. Mairead ran only months after spending 19 days on hunger strike with her comrades Mary Doyle and Mairead Nugent, and had already spent 5 years in Armagh jail. But it is not by some chance that I didn't have to go through what my aunt went through. The most recent phase of armed conflict, which meant so much sacrifice for so many, has paved the way for this generation of Republicans to continue their legacy through our current strategy. And it is now up to all of us to achieve the Republic envisaged by Tone, Connolly and Sands. I firmly believe that us coming together like this to commemorate is extremely, extremely important, because as we move on in electoral politics, we become busier and busier with the issues in our different areas, and extremely important both for us and for our constituencies. But sometimes it's important for us to take a step back and to think about why we are doing all those things. So, who we are and where we came from. To remember those who came before us and to reflect on the kind of republic we want. What we want is not some aesthetic change to the political makeup of this country. We want a fundamental transformation of the society in which we live. A true republic for all its citizens, economic, political and social equality for all. The ultimate commemoration, of course, will be when we achieve what those who paid the ultimate price died for. As Republicans, we are proud of our hunger strikers, as we are proud of the leaders of the 1916 Rising and their generation of Republicans. We are unapologetic of this. We know that the hunger strikers continued with the same legitimate struggle which Conley and Pearse fought. We know that we were right in 1916, we were right in 1969, and we were most certainly right in 1981. And as we move forward, from this interior year, which was a year of looking back and gathering our thoughts, we move forward as reinvigorated Republicans, always with the quote from Terence McSweeney at the back of our minds. It is not those who can inflict the most, but those who can endure the most that will conquer. Grimagi.
So in memory of Outlook, Mairead Farrell, and all those who died on hunger strike, and all our volunteers above in the here, the corner of Piper now just to play a lament in their memory.
Thank you, Gordon. I know Paul on Kate Kelly of Sinn Féin Common UCC that proudly bears the name of hunger striker Martin Hurston to read Rhythm of Time by Bobby Sands.
An inner thing in every man. Do you know this thing, my friend? It has withstood the blows of 1,000,000 years and will do so to the end. It was born when time did not exist, and it grew up out of life. It cut down evil strangling vines like a slashing searing knife. It lit fires when fires were not, and burnt the mind of man, tampering lead in hearts of steel from the time that time began. It wept by the waters of Babylon, and when all men were aloft, it screeched in writhing agony, and it hung bleeding from the cross. It died in Rome by lion and sword, and in defiant cruel array, when the deadly word was Spartacus along the Appian way. It marched with Watts at Tyler's fort, and frightened lord and king, and it was emblazoned in their deadly stare as ere a living thing. It smiled in holy innocence before conquistadors of old, so meek and tame and unaware of the deadly power of gold. It burst forth through pitful Paris streets and stormed the old Bastille, and marched upon the serpent's head and crushed it neath its heel. It died in blood, brain. Its heart was burned in wounded knee, but it will come to rise again. It screamed aloud by Kerry Lakes as it was knelt upon the ground. It died in great defiance as they coldly shot it down. It is found in every light of hope. It knows no bounds nor space. It is risen in red and black and white. It is there in every race. It lies in the hearts of heroes dead. It screams in tyrants' eyes. It has reached the peak of mountains high. It comes searing across the skies. It lights the dark of this prison cell. It thunders forth its might. It is the undauntable thought, my friend. The thought that says, I'm right.
Thanks, Kate. As mentioned earlier, Marie Farrell stood in the general election in Cork North Central, securing a great vote. And I think just after the hunger strikes, we saw a surge in Sinn Féin's political strength. And we were very proud and thank everybody who's contributed over the last number of years to have a TD now in Cork North Central, Jonathan O'Brien and Donegal Lera in Cork South Central, Pat Buckley in East Cork, and Donegal's office was opened this morning by Pat Sheen, MLA. So I asked Jonathan O'Brien now to address you as well.
Can I first of all welcome everyone here today. It's always a good feeling to be amongst fellow Republicans and fellow comrades and fellow party members. This year has been a year of commemoration and remembrance for Republicans. The 100th anniversary of the Easter Rising and the 35th anniversary of the 81 hunger strikes. And with each passing year since those milestones in Irish history, it is important for us as Republicans to not only commemorate our Patriot Day, but to rededicate ourselves to the vision to which they gave their lives. And Ireland, as proclaimed on the steps of the GPO, which was the Easter Proclamation, is a republic that guarantees religious and civil liberty, equal rights and equal opportunities to all its citizens, and it declares the resolve to pursue happiness and prosperity of the whole nation and of all its parts, cherishing all of the children of the nation equally, oblivious to the differences carefully fostered by an alien government which has divided a minority from the majority in the past. And that, comrades, remains the objective of those of us gathered here today. We have moved from a time of conflict and the denial of basic human rights to a time of somewhat improved conditions. And things have improved, and we will acknowledge that, but we still have a very long way to go. We still have social, cultural and economic equality or inequality on both sides of the border. It is hard to believe that it's been 35 years since our comrades in the Long Kesh gave their lives for our struggle. And they followed in the footsteps of previous generations who died on hunger strike. Republican forefathers such as Thomas Ashe and Terence McSweeney and Joe Murphy. And all of these men gave their lives so that we could stand here today, free of persecution due to our cultural and our nationalism and our desire for national self-determination. And there are many similarities to the hunger strikes of 20 and 23 and to the hunger strikes of the Long Kesh and Armagh jail in 80 and 81. In the autumn of 1920, during the Pan War, the British government had withdrawn political status, which had been won after the death of Thomas Ashe in 1917, and after a 2-week mass hunger strike in Mountjoy Jail in April of 1920. On the 11th of August, a mass strike was once again initiated, this time in Cork Jail, with 60 IRA volunteers, most of whom were held without charge or trial, demanded reinstatement of political status and their release. The British, having hardened their attitude against status following the April hunger strikes, ignore them rather than making concessions. However, in the weeks that followed, the British released or transferred many of those 60 volunteers until only 11 were left. 3 of these were Terence McSweeney, who joined the strike on the 12th of August, the day after it had begun, Michael Fitzgerald and Joe Murphy. On the 16th of August, 3 days after he'd begun his strike, McSweeney was sentenced to 2 years in prison. But he said his hunger strike would continue, and that very same night he was deported to Brixton. Following McSweeney's death, the hunger strike in Cork jail continued for a further 3 weeks, until a request by Arthur Griffin, the President of the Irish Republic, that the remaining 9 prisoners on hunger strike ended their fast on the 12th November 1920. 3 men had died on hunger strike in the intervening period. Michael Fitzgerald on the 17th of October after 67 days. Joe Murphy on the 25th of October after 76 days, and who was buried in the Republican plot in St. Finbarrs. And Terence McSweeney, Sinn Féin Ardmhéara, and Brigade Commandant, 1st Cork Brigade, Irish Republican Army, who died at 20 to 6 in the morning in Brixton Prison within hours of Murphy's death after 74 days. The death of Terence McSweeney reverberated around the world and showed the true nature of British colonialism for what it was, and it never fully recovered. The death of Bobby Sands on the 5th of May, after 66 days in hunger strike, had a similar effect. And it is seen by many as the beginning of the political struggle that has ultimately led to the position we find ourselves in today. Top tier office members, 5 MPs, hundreds of councillors, and over 12,000 active members of the party. And we are all on our way to achieving the republic that men like McSweeney and Sands gave their lives for. The 70s in particular were turbulent years. It was a time when the Republican movement was not only engaged in armed conflict with the might of the British Empire, but it was an empire which was aided and abetted by the Free State, who betrayed the values of Irish republicanism. Republicans were being murdered by British-sponsored death squads, subjected to torture and internment. Many Republicans ended up in prison, where they were once again faced with a British government who tried to criminalise them by refusing to recognise their political status. And all the while Republicans who continued to struggle on the outside, on both sides of the border, were subject to intense surveillance, harassment and intimidation. They were faced with a system which was designed to break the resolve of those engaged in armed struggle, and by extension, a system designed to defeat the Republican movement. And just as in the 1920s, when the British failed to defeat the desire for national self-determination, today we stand here in defiance of that very same system which was set up to try and defeat us as Irish Republicans. Comrades, we stand here unbowed and unbroken. We stand here in celebration of all those who went before us, particularly those who lost their lives in 1981. Volunteer Bobby Sands, aged 27. Volunteer Francis Hughes, aged 25. Volunteer Raymond McCreesh, aged 24. Volunteer Patsy O'Hara, aged 23. Volunteer Joe MacDonald, aged 29. Volunteer Martin Hossin, aged 24. Volunteer Kevin Lynch, aged 25. Volunteer Kieran Doherty, aged 25. Volunteer Thomas McElwee, aged 23. And finally, Volunteer Mickey Devine, aged 27. I'm sure many of you will agree with me when I say that we have seen and we welcome the progress Republicans have made down through the years. And there is no doubt that the hunger strikes of 1981 played a pivotal role in the development of our struggle and has set Sinn Féin and the IRA towards a different means of conflict, a political conflict and a political struggle. The Irish people accepted volunteer Bobby Sands and volunteer Ciarán Doherty, amongst others, as their political representatives, and they elected them to represent the will of the Irish people in defiance of the border. These men were elected by communities who desired to send an important message to the partitionists of that time. And just as we are gathered here today, we send the very same message to the partitionists of today, people like Micheál Martin and Fianna Fáil. And we say we have had enough, we will not take any more, and we will endure. The unyielding and ultimate sacrifice of our volunteers show the British government and Irish partitionists that the Republican movement would not waver in our resolve to end social inequality across this island and to end British occupation within the 6 counties. And I would say it's not that they began to listen to us. That was never the case. But rather they realised that they could no longer keep us down as a people. Our opponents tried to defeat our struggle by breaking the will of the hunger